Friends and viewers, Denis Diderot, who born in 1713 and who died in 1784, he was one of the key figure of French Enlightenment. He was almost entirely responsible for the Great Encyclopedia project, the aim of which was to publish everything known in the science of the time. For a decade, he was a friend of Rousseau until they had a major rift. After abandoning early training for the Jesuit priesthood, he spent a few bohemian years in Paris, mixing with a young philosopher. It was then that he published his first work, Philosophical Thought. Attacking religious hypocrisy, he also went on to write a number of novels. So, the novels which I am going to discuss with you today, my focus is one of his best novel, The Nun. So, it was also published by Oxford University Press. The Nun. My focus is his novel, The Nun. So the story of the nun begins life as a hoax to allure friend back to Paris from his country estate. Completely absorbed, Diderot tinkered with it for years. The novel was eventually published 12 years after he died. And in it, he invented the story of a young girl named Maria Susanna Simonin. Susanna is the result of an adulterous affair by her mother, resented by her father. She is thus rejected by a mother who is anxious to restore her favor with her husband. Susanna is forced into a nunnery at 18 years of age in order to get rid of an embarrassment and to favor her elder sister. Her sister turned out to be grasping, selfish daughters who cannot wait to inherit their mother's estate. They are starkly contrasted with Susanna, who submissively sacrifices her life in order to enable her mother to sustain her respectable front. Susanna has no vocation for being a nun and protests about it all her life, but to no avail. She complains to her self-centered mother, to her confessor, and to abbesses. They all manipulate her into submission with no real sympathy for the injustice of her situation. Her attempt to make a public speech about the evils of getting rid of unwanted daughters into nunneries is cut short by some quick damage controlled by the senior nuns. However, she cannot remain there, and after some time locked in a solitary room at her mother's, they find another nunnery prepared to overlook the scandal she has caused. The new nuns take pity because she has musical talent. Her novice years yield her at the best of time of her life, between an unloving home and the horrors of her later time into nunneries. Her first abbess is a wonderful leader, but a year after taking her vows, her mother, her father, and the sympathetic abbess all die. From that point on, her life becomes very bad. The new abbess, Saint Christine, brings a new order. The favorites of the old order are never the favorites of the following reign. Scourges and hair shirts were confiscated by Moni, but are now made mandatory by Saint Christine. Susanna is a rebel and resists this new order based on unquestioning submission and obedience or resistance brings only sadistic repression. A regime of vicious persecution is implemented instantly with cooperation of nearly all of the subordinate nuns. Diderot present them as to a dying favor with the head sister. They are her willing enforcer, each of them competing to show more cruelty in mockery and persecution than others. Much of Diderot's story is reminiscent of Irving Goffman's analysis of total institution, such as the army, prison, and insane asylum. Here, every minute aspect of administration reinforced the huge power divide between the commanders and the inmate, who are systematically humiliated and stripped of dignity and privacy. So the nuns make Susanna eat her meals on the floor in the center of the refectory. Some nuns spread broken glass on the floor of the corridor to her cell and steal her shoes. Others steals her bedding, refuse to serve her food, throw their toilet waste through their doors at her as she's passing their room, block the keyhole to her room, and become hysterical at her contaminating presence. The abbesses conduct a mass in which Susanna is made to lie in a coffin. Although she is almost driven to suicide, she receives protection from one loyal friend in writing a detailed account of her persecution. Susanna consumed a large quantity of paper, realizing the damage impending if her story become public. The abbess and her minions have a panic reaction. The Vicar Journal is called in, investigates thoroughly, and scathingly condemns the abbess for her cruelties. In the end, little changes. Susanna engaged a lawyer, Mr. Menuri, to plead in the court for her liberation from an unwanted cloistering. When this appeal failed, she is persecuted even more cruelly afterwards as an agent of Satan. A typical reaction from an authoritarian institution in which submission to authority is the primary value. Diderot develops here a powerful case for liberty from such oppression. As in so many other institutions, the operation is so capricious. Despite the existence of detailed rules of management of convents, everything depends on the personality of the leader. Susanna eventually transferred to another convent, Arpejon, where she encounters a similar but different problem. The abbess there also exerts strong favoritism. However, this is because she is a lesbian, fostering intense bitchy and hysterical jealousies between new and discarded favorite. This is what happened in the Longchamps convent, where Saint Christine favorite would do anything to fit in with the abbess. Commitment to persecuting a rebel, even driving in the resistors to suicide. The whole of Diderot novel is not devoted to an attack on Catholic Christianity, as Susanna is portrayed as a fervently pious young woman. Diderot's critique is directed to the unnatural hothouse relationship that develop in authoritarian convent. In these dysfunctional setting, it is not the church, but the personal idiosyncrasies of the abbess that determine whether the convent culture manifests as healthy or sick. He also protested against a legal system that reinforced such systematic viciousness. Along the way, Diderot develops acute psychological studies of sadistic and highly sexualized personalities. He shows how similar the forces are for driving inmates insane from the shifting intense loyalties and scrambling for status and favor with the abbess. Diderot suggests these phenomena were common in such institution. Any protest at convent being used in practice for the disposal of unwanted daughters, where the orders were paid handsomely to enable rejecting families to get rid of their disfavored children. In this case, Susanna's parents have three children and favor two of them while being appallingly cruel to her, their third child. So this novel presents a consistent theme on the evils of unequal treatment of persons in the clique-riddled bureaucracies, just as there is in families in which one child is ostentatiously favored. For a novel written in 1770s, it is remarkably modern in the way in which it addresses what are still very real issues. It speaks to, for example, the repeated outbreaks of bastardization in the armed forces and the persecution of whistleblowers such as Mark Mickleby. Mickleop was beatified posthumously, but while alive she was communicated for exposing the sexual abuse of children by a priest. Clergy abuse of minors remain a very modern issue. So, as with the American Declaration of Independence, Diderot was pleading, in effect, for all people to have the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To achieve this goal, his novel is plea for the need for the abolition of such evil institution as convent, in which helpless young women have their sanity systematically destroyed. So this is the story of Nun by Denis Diderot, the famous encyclopedist. And I hope this is a thought-provoking novel. And this problem still exists in the third world countries, in the madrasas, in the nunneries. I hope you will enjoy. Thank you very much.